started. And the first item of new business is the draft of the academic calendar.
Yep, let me just speak to that very briefly. This is not the calendar workshop. We'll have that at the March meeting before the school board meeting. So we will meet with the primary, hopefully that'll be the only agenda item. But just the backdrop on this calendar, as you will recall, for the last several years, we have established a staff council, which is made up of staff represented from all 4 school buildings, as well as a parent from each school, from each PTA, to serve on the calendar committee. We start with, it's a lengthy process. We start with, here's the law, that the Virginia calendar law, which prescribes certain things, like you have to start by a certain time, you have to end by a certain time, how many holidays, and thus and such. And then we go through and start to talk about what is important to you about the calendar. So we share with them what regional calendar committees report out, what they're doing. If you recall last year, the big move was to start before Labor Day, because all the other school divisions around were doing that, and primarily, I think your motivation, if I capture it correctly, was because of our partnership with New Horizons and the Aviation Academy, where we had kids, quite a few kids, partnering with these other programs. We wanted to be in line for that. But this represents a very similar calendar to this current year. The takeaways from the committee was the staff was, of course, 100% trying to maintain those half days. They get a lot done. They believe in those days. I know that's a challenge for parents, but they are very much sold on those days and what they get out of them. So they were universally campaigning for that piece. Parents like they don't want to touch the holidays. Staff agrees with that too. You know, they're expecting the 2 weeks of Christmas, the weekend, spring break, and such. So that was the feedback, and that kind of motivated the calendar. The other things are kind of, it's a weird time around Christmas, and you'll notice that. I will say this calendar is almost identical to area school divisions that have already passed their calendars. Like Williamsburg, correct me if I'm wrong, Brandon, Williamsburg, James City, York County.
York has, I think Williamsburg's the only one
Williamsburg's the only one passed it, but York is
everyone else
tossing around a similar calendar. They all the folks that are reporting out that partner with New Horizons, all 5 school divisions, are planning the post Labor Day start as well. So that's it. Study it. The pre-Labor Day start. All the 6 school divisions that share New Horizons, and also, of course, Aviation Academies and Newport News. That's it. Chew on it. We'll bring it up in the work session in March, and but we will be asking for you to vote on that. That we as an agenda item after that, in the meeting after the work session, because we need to get the word out. We've already been asked by quite a few parents. You have a calendar for next year. We're planning our summer vacation.
So we'll vote in April.
You'll vote in March. Work session before the meeting, and vote right after. That's why we've given it to you.
I think we need to have a work session at least 2 weeks before. We can't, I think there's going to be changes that I'm going to suggest that an hour before the meeting is not going to get a. So should we talk about it now? I mean, I'm just trying to figure out what your way is.
Do you want to talk about this or the budget?
Yeah, this.
Well, I think I see why we have 180 days and not the 990 hours because of what is shown here. Approximately 86 hours over, approximately 13.94 days over.
Yeah, the law reads 180 days or 990 hours. What has happened is Poquoson has held tight with the 180 days and has always had 180 days. We've built calendars following that tradition. The couple of other school divisions that have not are heading back to the 180 days. So we're anticipating all the school divisions around to launch a 180-day calendar. Now, you don't have to. You can do the 990 hours any way you want to do it. But we do log quite a bit of time on top of the 990 required hours.
How come an assessment day is considered a full day? Like,
What?
in middle school, my kid's done, there's a test at 10 o'clock and he's coming home. That's a full instructional day?
It is. The law doesn't.
We don't have to note it in here?
Nope.
So York County has 4 half-days, and they're doing all full days Fridays. And I would be more happy for a teacher to get a full day Friday for workshop and professional planning, instead of trying to get all the kids on the bus, clean up the classrooms, and then jumping into it.
Actually, they're not doing full-day Fridays. They have a few of those days worked in there. They have a few of those days. It's on another presentation that where are we showing that?
This is like October 4th, November 4th.
Are you looking at
before,
York's
President's
calendar?
Day. York County's, yeah. The 27th, the 3rd are their full day teacher work days, the 12th, and they kind of put them close around where like election day is what's going to be off anyway. And in my opinion, and it's just mine, if we're trying to get kids in the classroom, if we can give parents 3 and 4 day weekends, they might be more in tune to say we want to take them
What if
out.
we moved them to the half days to Fridays?
The half days is still not giving the parents to be able to, they're going to take their kids out. I mean, that's what they're going to do, and that's what we're trying to stop. But if we give them a full day where teachers have to be there, they would have been there with the kids anyway, but now y'all have a day from start to finish, no cleaning classrooms, get them on buses, having delays. We can start professional development that whole day.
Here's where it gets hairy, and I hear you, and look, here's what it is for calendar. I don't have an opinion about calendar. I've worked 12 months, so I'm gonna be here every day and most nights. So if we want to do this, what you have to do is realize we can't start until the start date,
The 26th.
which is that's the earliest we can start.
Yeah.
And then if we have to end up June the 6th, which is a Friday, any day you add to this without taking a holiday, you've got to add it to the school year. Now, I'm going to tell you, your teachers are going to scream.
Yep. But June 11th is when York ends.
Unless we go to the hours.
No, that's the teacher work days. Their student days end on June the 7th.
In last day of school, it says June 11th, and the one that came off their board meeting, the last board meeting.
Well, how did we where did we get that?
I just took this off their board meeting, their recommendation, from the board meeting, I copied their full calendar.
Okay, I thought that was the case. I kept saying to our team, they don't end on that Friday.
No.
But what we found out,
They
But
add,
that's for next year, correct? Steve?
the process that they took in just, and I don't know what they're going to recommend, but throughout the regional meetings, the process that they took, and they may have actually gone below 180 days last year, I can't remember, but
York
essentially,
did, they did 180.
They're right at
they,
180, right?
they are working the days in, which extends the school
Year to the end of the year, okay.
Which, and then
I
that,
looked at a
Right.
calendar, it may have
Yeah,
been an
sure.
old calendar that ended on the 7th. So that's something that you all can do. Now, I can tell you, it won't be popular with teachers, but again, you can do that, and you can take days like any week there's a half day, make it a Friday full day, and they can work, parents can travel, but you've got, every one of those days has to be added to the end of the school year, because there's no wiggle room without touching holidays.
Unless you go hourly.
Unless you go hourly. And then you could do something crazy like a 4-day work week if you wanted to. And then we would have no
I'm
trouble.
not trying to do 4 days.
No, but I'm just saying, I'm not being facetious.
Yeah.
I'm saying,
See, what
Williamsburg,
it's-
James City
No,
actually
I
had
think
this
it's a good
conversation
Okay.
last year.
People-
And seriously,
Yeah.
Monday
consider,
through Thursday.
It gives you that
Students
flexibility
Monday
going
through
forward.
Thursday.
you would have no problem recruiting.
Friday, you can still, we could still potentially get a solution where students that need childcare could still come to school. We have kids that are in all these programs that need development and time. If we could study it and see what options are out there, but I mean, in New England, there are schools that are going to school Monday through Thursday. You want something to differentiate that's cost neutral, that's gonna get teachers that will say, yep, I'll take a pay cut to not have students every Friday or every other Friday, whatever that is. But you wanna do something that's gonna make an impact, that's gonna make an impact.
The longer days.
$500 here and there, that ain't it. That ain't it, not when you're already 5%, 15% behind. It doesn't.
So when professional development originally came up, like three years ago or 4 years ago, I think it was around 3 years ago, it was right after the lockdowns were lifted.
Well, you're talking about our half days.
Yeah.
You know, professional development's been going on since the cavemen.
Well, for Wednesdays, because
Yeah.
we had said Wednesdays because the teachers wanted Fridays.
Well, what happened was, the teachers were back and forth. We had a debate with teachers, and some wanted Wednesday because the problem with Fridays is
Kids don't.
the kids don't come. And so a teacher, when you have poor attendance, is the hardest thing in the world for a teacher. Anybody that's ever taught school knows you got to then get those kids caught back up, and you can't move on with new material. What I find when we have poor attendance days is the teachers don't do anything meaningful. They fluff it off so they have to reteach that thing the next day, and I hate that. But so Wednesdays was kind of landed as this will prevent that from happening. Now, what we have found, interestingly enough, is our attendance is not worse significantly on those half days. Matter of fact, the virtual day we had last week, I know, or a couple weeks ago, it's not popular, but our attendance rate was 98% that day. Engaged learning, 98%. The teachers in middle school told me she had a more productive class that day than she did the class the week prior. And so I'm just saying, I'm not trying to have that conversation, but the point is, when we try to make, when Friday is a poor attendance day if you have a half day. If it's a day off, you know.
And they timed it where, so like the student holiday on October 4th, interns are issued on the 10th. So it kind of gives them the extra day to start getting your interns out for this one. The next one was on November 4th, right before Election Day, so that turns into a 4-day weekend, but then report cards are issued on the 7th. So it kind of gave them a day to, okay, here's professional development plus time to get some stuff off.
Oh, there's no question that if the board's interest is to replace some half days with all day, no problem. The only thing, just to know, the only thing you can do is put it past June.
Yeah.
It's got to be, past June the 7th. The only time you can put it is extend the school year.
So theirs adds 3 days past the 7th. So it's a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Exactly, you can do that.
And for high school, they're going to be done with the exams. They're not going to be there those 3 days anyway.
So they go to school until the 11th of June.
The high school probably won't, because the high school
Well,
starts.
we got, see, that's the other thing is, we have already reserved the church for the 7th for graduation. We had to do this one other year. We graduated the seniors before the end of the school year, so it's not the end of the world. We could do that, and then planning forward, we would reserve the church for the following Friday.
We probably need to study that and do some sort of ask a question or something, because what I don't think we should do is alienate teachers by making a decision that's not going to feel supportive or for 3 hours. I just don't think that's what we want to do. You know, we already are going to struggle with that. You know, so we don't want to give them another reason to not, you know.
That maybe Friday, work day without kids, you say might be better than the Wednesday of a half day. I know sometimes they feel stressed from what some of them said, and we can see why it's so very great that they get stressed on those Wednesdays because they're trying to get back, get them on the bus, get back, get their rooms clean, and go meet to start this program. And it's like, I've got more stuff I have to do, and then now this 3 hours is actually turning into 2.5, 2:15 because I have to get everything settled and get over there as fast as I can instead of just saying.
So, and Brandon, I apologize. I did some really, really quick math. And if we were to turn around and go all 4-day week, we potentially would only have to increase the school day by 30 minutes and add 4 days.
And like I said, we probably should ask parents because some parents
would have
are
to
not
study
going to be
it.
able to take off work to have their kids. Like I do.
I know.
Friday would be best for me. They're in place. This is not for CJ because I have
Right.
my
We
thing
would- I
there.
think
So,
we would-
Wednesday, my
But-
job watch is
The
Wednesday half
challenge-
day is great for me.
The challenge we have right now is twofold, right? Parents are 100% part of the challenge. Equal to that, in my opinion, is teacher retention.
Right.
100%. You know, we are not going to be able to, as a community, support a 15% raise
Ever.
ever, you know, and then expect us to maintain normal cost of living raises on a year-over-year basis. I mean, our city budget will just not allow that. So we have to find a differentiator for it.
So I think the reason why they scrapped a lot of the hourly is you can't get elementary and primary and some middle schools to focus the full day in class. So you really, if you go on hourly, you're not getting full learning the whole time from what I've heard and already probably better. These kids are focusing elsewhere, just like in a long meeting, you're done and it's like trying to pull them back in to be like, hey, if we're doing hourly, we need to power hourly nonstop from start to finish and put this information in you so the grades don't drop.
Just to kind of speak to that generally, in a 7.5-hour school day, you get about 3.5 hours of real intense learning, and that's all part of attention span, all the stuff that goes on. And you know, we serve lunch and change classes and you know all that. And so then you drill down to core academics. That's a small portion of that too. When you add on the other things that we do, recess and PE and you know all the other stuff, all important things. But so if we were going to really consider looking at an increase in school day, I would say 30 minutes is about what you can do, because you can add the 30 minutes which count toward the 990 hours and you don't lose anything, because how you would structure your day, you would give enough breaks throughout all that time and make it still a meaningful 4 hours of instruction that happens every day. So it could be done, and again, it's being done. We'd have to study it.
But decreasing 25 days of the year for hourly.
But I would recommend that if we're going to have a serious conversation about that, we don't have time even in the rest of the school year to do that. Just as we should survey, we should research, we really have some homework to
So
do
this
on
would be
that.
like a 25, 26.
I would think if you wanted to talk about that seriously, and I would love to have that conversation. I've read a lot of research on it. It is happening other places. It is
Successfully and
successfully
Yeah.
and
I don't know what our
unsuccessfully.
test
There's no
rates,
question.
what you feel our test rates would do.
But
because I don't
so
want
then
to
that's
get you
the issue. We would have to be ready
Yeah.
because if anything happens academically, they're going to blame us for that because we changed up the schedule. So just know that those are heavy rocks we have to haul around. So I would just recommend, and I'm going to make that same recommendation multiple times tonight, that in being toward the end of February is not the time to be doing this. We should give us some time. Let's put together a committee. Let's get representation from various groups. Let's do our homework. Let's look at academic performance and from some of these school divisions and see and do it right. And then when we're having calendar conversation middle of next year or February of next year, we'll be prepared to have that conversation for the following school year. In addition to that, the budget outlook is going to be quite different next year. There's a lot of reasons. We'll talk about that tonight. We're in a biennium budget, so.
One thing the calendar days and all that, another thing I'd like to add to that as an agenda item before the calendar is discussion of days where school goes virtual. It was really unfortunate that it happened on a half day.
And that will never happen again, but what happened that day is we'd planned our mid-year spark.
Yeah.
So that was just I say it never happened again, watch it happen again next year. No, but the stars all lined up. The fact that we had our only, knock on wood, day that we've had to do to toggle to virtual all year, and it happened on a day that we had this thing we couldn't move.
Right.
If it was just collaborative half day, we'd have moved it. But this was our Spark half day, so we had presenters coming in from all over everywhere. We sweated over this one.
Yeah.
We really had no alternative. And I was glad to see that as we followed up I've talked to probably 20, 30 teachers the following few days. How did it go? And they reported, for the vast majority, very well. And our engagement was, like I said, 97%.
So will you outline, I guess, your counties? I think that would be something we can have a discussion with this time instead of
and you
Wednesday
have
half
it in your
days,
packet.
Fridays,
Yeah, I
full
sent
days.
you what we got from their calendar in an email. Actually, April sent you, but I'll get it back to you.
Yeah, I get that one.
But if we could, and I'm just going to recommend, so we're supposed to be budget tonight. if we could be prepared in the March meeting, so that we don't kick this further down the road, to have that whole work session. We can start at 5:30 if you wanted to, if you could make it happen. We take an hour and a half before the meeting, and we talk just about calendar. And I'm going to strongly recommend, if you don't hear anything else, that we adopt this calendar for this coming year, and then talk about those innovative things for next year that could look at some Fridays off and kicking some time back toward the end of the year, giving us time to have that conversation with the calendar committee, because we promised them we were going to bring you this and campaign for it, because that's what the committee wanted.
Bringing that and your counties would at least give us a
Yeah,
good
yeah, we'll
side by
come to
side
it for
to
sure.
look at.
And they will probably have theirs ready that they're going to propose by then. What do you think, Mark?
They're around the
This is
March
the one that I got, you
timeframe.
can have it, this is.
They're around the
out
March
there
timeframe
for-
too. The problem is that I can get exactly what they're proposing, it just may not be public information
Right.
at the time when I get it.
Well, at least if we can have that in that work session, and hopefully we'll be able to decide on the calendar here. But that's it, that's your draft, and it is the strong recommendation from the committee
Okay.
with consensus. All right, I want to welcome Tara. You all know Tara well, but some of you new on the board may not know Tara. Tara Woodruff is the CFO for the city, and she's here tonight. And she's going to take back all the things we are talking about and campaign very hard to make it happen with the city. Right, Tara? No promises. Anyway, we do appreciate Tara. She's been working on this side and that side of the budget for quite a while. I'm going to be quiet in just a minute and turn it over to the real expert. And I want to thank Tracy, and I could go on and on, sound like the Oscars, thanking all these folks. But this budget has been a lot of work for a lot of reasons. First reason is it's a biennium year that we have only the governor's budget to start with, and there wasn't much in there for us this year. We had a 1% bonus, no pay raise, nothing really extraordinary from that side of it to sink our teeth in. It's also a time when the General Assembly has changed parties. So you've got a governor of one party and the majority in both houses of the other party, and that creates an interesting dynamic going through the budget cycle. So we've been reading tea leaves and going back and forth. We've also networked pretty closely with all the area superintendents in Region 2, all 15 superintendents, to try to get an idea of where they're coming in on their budgets as regard to pay raises. Because at the end of the day, what I heard from you and what I am committed to is we're trying to find ways to recruit and retain teachers in a very, very difficult market. So this budget is one of the ways we do it. It's not the only way we do it, but it's one of the ways we do it. I want to draw your attention to the big bookends. One is our budget is 80% staff. That's 80%. Let's settle in a minute. It's a $30 million budget request. So 24 million of that is staff. So if there's no interest in firing anybody, that's a fixed cost. And the only thing that will change in that is whatever we decide to increase compensation. And that number just goes up. Everybody clear on that? So when we start talking about where can we do things, we're talking about a very small pocket of money, and most of that are fixed costs that we have no control over. Now, what Tracy has done, along with all of our team, is scrub this budget deep and wide. We've gone in to find every possible efficiency that we can do, and she's going to share several of those with you. And what we've carved out as much that can be carved out of this budget, but we have identified a small group of things that we can kick down the road another year to generate some more money to talk about spending that you all may be interested in. For example, Tim had brought up AP testing. That's not in this budget, but It's about, we've got a number, it's about almost $24,000 to pay for every AP test that we gave last year. Now that number will change as AP goes up, but that's just a number to chew on. We've identified a couple of things that we have built in the budget, that if that was the pleasure of the board, that they'd rather not do that and do AP testing, we can do that. That's the kind of conversation we can have, but there is no big bullet to shoot. You're not going to generate any amount of money by any of the other things that were proposed that would make any significant impact on trying to, for example, compete with York County. Now, here's what I have been told. Budgets are being presented all over the state this month, or work sessions, and they'll be presented formally in March. Around the region, they're going to come in with, or we were told they were going to come in between 2 and 3.5% in pay raises. Then we were told that York County has just reassessed, and so they're sitting on a little pocket of money, and they were going to come in at 5%. We learned just recently that changed at kind of the 11th hour, and they went to 5.5%. After we had already built our budget packets and all of that, and built the budget. So anything that we do that doesn't include a 5.5% pay raise moves us further from York County. So that's kind of the elephant in the room. If that's the interest still to try to get there. Now, if you look at the pay run on the peninsula, we're last, and the one just ahead of us is Gloucester, and the one just ahead of Gloucester is New Kent. I think we pulled New Kent in, and then it's York, Williamsburg, and York and Williamsburg. They are very competitive with each other. What one does, the other does typically, and then the big guys, Newport News and Hampton, we will never, and I don't mean to say, I hate to say never, but we'll never compete with them. But that's a different job. It's different work. So those are the things that frame this conversation. I would love for us to be able to find some things that you can feel really good about, that if we're able to move those over to things that you would like to try. But you're not going to find any significant amount of money in this budget that you can move. And it's, like we said earlier, and we said in our thing we sent out, you can't move capital money, because we don't own the capital money.
So if the city tells us we can get, what, 30-something million? Why don't we come to them and say it's going to cost 37 for us to do what we need?
They'll say no.
I mean, that's fine, but at least we pushed for where we need to go, instead of, I feel last time we went with 5 and the city goes, well, we're going to give you 6. Thank you, city. What makes us look bad? We're only going to give you 5, but then they found 6. We need to go high, unfortunately, and they're going to have to come down, or they're going to have to say we need to find new funding somewhere. And I know the state don't have it. I have boat. I don't want boat tax. I don't want tax bar. I don't want this. But at some point, we have to say we value teachers, and this is what's going to build our community and our children and what matters, and we have to go big. And the city might just say no, and that's fine. And they can say no, and they can come with a new budget and say, you know what, this is what you get. And I'm okay with that. But at some point, we have to take a step. Well, 5.8 less than Gloucester. So if we do 5.5 and they do 2, they're still going to be higher than us. And we're telling every teacher here, we're paying you the lowest. And you know what? The schools have changed. Everybody's not coming because it's Poquoson now. And so we don't have that luxury, and they can't even afford the houses to come here, especially with what we're paying. So you can't even live in our community, but we want you to come work here for less money. At some point, us as school board have to say, you're right, you might not give it to us, but this is what we have to come with.
Well, the only thing I can say is, in every conversation I've had with city council and the city manager, there's no appetite for a tax increase. There's, Terry, you might want to weigh in about any of this, or maybe not, but I'm not hearing any interest in that. And we were at a work session the other day. There is a risk involved in that. Having lived that in a former world, a school board in opposition to a city council is a dead-end street, I can promise you that. And it wouldn't bode well for any of us. to be in that situation, and I just have to put that out there. I think that's a big mistake to not work. The school board and the city council in Poquoson have this long history of working very, very well together. I think that would destroy that.
I think we have to work very well together to find a way to compensate these teachers a little bit more if we're going to keep them. We can't have 60 to 80 turnover every single year and think that we're still going to be able to keep the schools good and do everything else. And we can just rely, beg, plead people to come over here, but in the end, 3 years from now, after you spent all your time and money training these people, they're going to jump ship.
I think that's why, I think that's why we need to find a unique way to skin it. Like we were talking about before, the 4-day work week.
We can't let it affect kids' grades and stuff like that too.
So,
And that's where it gets hard.
just, you know, and I don't want to harp too much on the 4-day work week because that's not what this is about, but, you know, I did some research on that this week, and a few of the studies show that it actually helps the lower tier students, and it marginally, you know, impacts the higher tier students. And that's just because sometimes the higher achieving students need more attention than, you know, so, and there's other there's other benefits outside of the school that are noted with older kids and being able to turn around and work additional jobs, help around the house, you know. So there's obviously a lot of stuff you have to unpack with that, but I think the only way we're going to, as a community, retain teachers based on the way that our community is set up, I mean, we just do not have the tax base to be able to handle stuff, is to come up with a unique way to retain teachers.
And I think you're right, but I think after a while, that 4-day work week does not pay my bills, and they're going to leave anyway. And so did we just now give this other one that is a short-term fix that affects students in the classroom, parents all trying to find coverage to do it? And yes, schools aren't babysitters, but yes, they are. Our economy is set up that way. It's not people sitting at home working and can just watch their kids on Fridays. And, you know, my employee comes to me and says, I need a 4-day work week because my kid's home every Friday. I'm like, you need a new job. I mean, I can't do it. And so.
I mean, that's a consider,
But I think at some point, working with the community, I understand, and there's hard decisions, and I don't want to see some of the things I love about Poquoson gone. But the time and era has changed to, this is not just somewhere where everybody just wants to come, and we are so valuable that people will come in and take a huge pay cut and get paid the least amount because I just want to be part of this community. They can't afford the houses here anyway. And at some point, we don't have to work with the city and make a hard decision, and it might be the community too that, you know, there might be a small boat tax, there might be less dump sites behind here. I mean, just little things that are big things that we're going to have to make, and we are going to have to work with them. But if they're asking our opinion on how to keep the schools good, there's one thing we have to do to be able to keep retention and keep our schools good is pay our teachers somewhere close to not the bottom. Because unfortunately, they say there's no tax revenue, but we should be making more than some of these other people, and they're still paying their teachers more than us.
That doesn't make sense to me, CJ.
Okay?
It doesn't make sense to me if we're smaller than all of them. We're a smaller community than Gloucester. We're a smaller community than New Kent, Williamsburg, York County, Hampton, Newport News. So the expectation can't necessarily be that we're going to be the same. But I think it's
What are the classroom sizes of those other areas?
They're comparable.
So the more people you have, the more students you have, the more teachers you need. So in our actual, the ratio it hits is the students we have is, do we have just way more kids than any other place and we need more teachers in classrooms? Or is there something we're doing wrong? Because New Kent has to pay for more teachers because they're bigger.
But they
and
have
the
more
class-
money.
They have
They
more
have
tax
more
revenue.
money.
But they have more employees and more.
But they have more
Proportionally,
money.
they have more tax
Proportionally,
revenue.
percentage-wise,
There's
they have
12,000
more
people
money.
that live here, and there's no industry.
Right, they have
Every
more money.
year, New Kent, just use New Kent for
And
example,
if
they
we
have
change-
Rosie's.
The tax,
The taxes that the school system gets from Rosie's is extraordinary.
Right.
It's just, we're an anomaly.
we
If
are.
we can't afford it, we might have to look to not be Poquoson and move and get absorbed. If we're saying that there's no way we can afford teachers and we can't do
CJ, I
schools,
can assure you that we should not take that recommendation to the city.
if we can't
I
afford,
will not.
okay, and I might not say it's too much. If we can't afford to pay the teachers a decent salary, what are we telling them? It's just the way our community is and you don't get a good salary.
No, I don't think so. so, but I think that the idea that because we got more money from the city means we did a bad job isn't necessarily fair and or accurate or true. The city found money we didn't know they had. Great. But I think there's an inherent problem with saying we don't agree with the city.
We should ask for more money, that if they can't find, they can tell us no.
They already
They already told
asked,
us.
and they already
We didn't
told
ask, they told
us.
us last time and we didn't ask.
But
No,
we've asked and they told us.
Okay, well, we haven't
they've
written
got
down.
about $1 million.
We have not written down, we have not came with a budget to ask. We have not asked. We didn't approve a budget that said we're asking for this. We have not asked.
I think that's a mistake. but-
I mean, that's okay, it's a vote. I mean, I'm just letting you know. Go ahead, Doctor.
Oh, thank you.
Sorry.
So I'm looking at the primary school, line item 8200, equipment additions.
What tab are you on?
Oh,
Three.
Three.
First page.
page 7. Last line item,
Equipment additions,
8200.
okay.
Yeah. What does that entail?
The city filed replacement radios for $26,135,
Okay.
and then 3 replacement cafeteria tables at $6,767.
Okay.
And it's almost the same for the elementary school as well, correct?
Yeah, the elementary school,
They should have the same replacement radios, right?
and the same replacement radios.
I'm pretty sure.
I don't think I've seen that. Yes, they had $13,000 for the cafeteria tables, and they had 20 each.
And computers, we replace every 5 years? Is that what I saw?
There's a cycle. Do you know what our replacement cycle is for computers?
Chromebooks are on a 7-year cycle, the old desktops were on a 5-year cycle, and we don't,
I know, it's terrible.
The parents are paying for it when they break anyway. We had to look at
Administrative
the
isn't
insurance.
They should get $25. Smart parents are not paying for it, and they don't
They're
pay
paying for the
for it.
insurance to get it.
Yeah, but
they're paying
$25,
for
that's the best deal in town.
it. But if we go to 10 years, I mean, we have to make some hard decisions.
Oh, that's, one-time fee, $25?
One time a year, and then you can throw your computer in the trash every other day and get a new computer. The point is, everybody who has computers, every school division, this is not new, it's nothing extraordinary about us. And of course, I came from a place that started one computing 15 years ago. There's a process, and it costs money, and they don't last forever. And every school division that I know of offers a very reasonable package for replacement, and it's smart money. We campaign for that. Some people don't do it, but it is what it is. So.
Oh, the hammer running up for it, turn it in, the day before, so we get a little.
Get that 25 and tear it up.
While we were looking at the primary school, I was curious about the salaries decrease at
Yes.
primary school.
Yes, and I can speak to that in general, because here, rather than go through, I mean, you all can go through and nickel and dime this budget, it's clean all the way there.
Yeah, I was.
I don't know, but there's a trend here we were going to talk about in the presentation. We skipped the presentation, jumped right in. It's okay, thanks, TJ. But, so what we have done is, over time, our population of teachers are younger and less experienced. So when you look at salaries, if it's a smaller number, old teachers have retired, young teachers have been hired, and they make less
Or
money.
they left to go
I was
somewhere
gonna
else.
say, yeah, salary side, it's actually interesting.
Because I think-
Permanent
Well, and then if you
salary
look at,
increase.
like, for example, I'm just going to use the principal at the elementary school. She was our highest paid principal, been here a long, long time. When she leaves, the new principal doesn't make as much as she makes. So that was a trend all the way across, and it's actually a trend across the country. Older teachers are retiring, some retiring early, because this is hard work, and it's, it is a trend. It started during COVID, and people, the mass exodus, we call it, and a lot of veteran teachers were leaving. You'll also find negative numbers in VRS. The state changed the VRS program to our new hybrid plan. It started the year before I came, and that plan is horrible. And I'm just being honest. And it's basically a glorified 401k plan, and it is less expensive. That's why the state, they didn't think over time they could sustain the real pension plan which they had before. And people who've been in Virginia for years retire on that plan, and they got a really nice deal. But the new ones, so you'll see parentheses around VRS pretty much in every category. You'll see the trend in teachers, correct me if I'm wrong on this, Tracy, as generally lower paid teachers
And the benefit
coming in.
selections are different, so if you have someone who's military connected and come in, they may have their spouse's insurance, so we don't have to pick up the
So-
that's significant.
Yeah, so maybe looking at it from an FTE position versus, a, school by school basis, right?
Right.
Where does what we're projecting for FTE positions?
We only increase by one.
Increase by one.
By one, so
Okay.
the total shift, and you're shifting things around with the total increase of one. And that was a school, the SSO.
Do we still have the second?
Is that on a grant?
But it's still an FTE, so that, you'll
Just
see
the
that in our
number of
presentation,
FTE.
it's grant funded. So
And
I've included that.
Several of our staff members are grant funded,
Yeah.
The other thing is, the other part to understand about this is SOQ funding, which is the formula Virginia uses, which is another horrible way to fund schools, only generates about 53% of the staff funding. So that's why when we talk about pay raises, whatever the state gives, they only give it through that funding formula, which is a certain percentage of teachers. We actually have teachers who are SOQ teachers and teachers who are not. It has nothing to do with who the teacher is, what they teach, or where they are. It's just some are in the funding formula and some are not, that we have to pick up locally. And it's about half, 53%, I think, state, something like that.
All I was trying to do for us as a group is just to understand, where does our overall, number of employees land, because,
You're right on the spot.
you know.
And the permanent salary thing, as it's kind of talking about efficiency, is around $380,000.
And that's-
So it's pretty significant.
and that's
Hence the decrease.
and that's a blend of actual known what it's gonna be next year plus
Yes, right.
and
then the
anticipated.
people, that's
Correct.
exactly.
I assume you use probably like just below the midpoint.
Right,
Probably
and
like a
usually
10-year.
it's gonna be like, we look at the history of how we're hiring and where they're falling in, so we're not starting them at zero necessarily,
Yeah.
because I think we probably would be called
Yeah.
So.
What is that average? What is that?
Say it.
That's 57,000, I think, is
But it's
including
not-
benefits and everything.
Yeah, what's
It's
that?
not at where they left.
Yeah, what is the average step, do you think, that y'all are
Is
using?
it running about $49,000? So,
Plus benefits.
Right.
yeah, then you got the benefits on.
So just in regards to staff and FTEs, do you guys have a breakdown? So I'm looking at teacher salary schedule. I don't know where that is in here, but in regards to that, presumably younger or newer teachers are at the lower end of the scale, more experienced teachers at the higher end of the scale. Are we doing projections to see, like, assume we keep everyone? What's the long-term projection for a 20-year employee, and how much is that going to increase our budget?
Yeah,
In the long run.
Absolutely.
To do biennial type budgets at a minimum.
But I mean, and I guess, and
But
this is
exactly,
kind of going with what
your
CJ's
projectile.
hold on. This is kind of going with what CJ was talking about with, like, say we have 150 first-year teachers. And in 30 years, we're going to have all 30-year teachers. How will our budget in the city?
Yeah, but it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
Well, I know that. Yeah, because they leave.
So what we have to do is, it's less than an algorithm, but it is a projection that we have looked at over time, and we follow that same curvature. Because what happens is, teachers come and go, and we hire some that, we don't have any idea for sure next year how many teachers we will hire that are first year, 10-year, 15-year. We hire the best teacher we can hire on the market, and there is a trend that we're kind of watching, that school divisions are hiring younger teachers naturally because there are less
We've lost
teachers
a
in the
lot.
pipeline. We've lost a lot of teachers. And the pipeline, is drying up too. That we're seeing a third less folks come out of colleges. So this trend is going to be hard to follow to see what happens. We are seeing more and more folks who are coming to the profession later in life, so they may not be fresh out of college, but they're brand new teachers. We're seeing a lot of, last year we hired 8 or 9 former retired military who came to us as troops teachers program. And so there's a lot of interesting trends out there, but it's hard to predict where they're going to land on the pay scale.
With 1/3 coming out less.
1/3 less coming out of colleges. Yeah. In addition to early retirements, people moving out of the country, out of the state of Virginia. There's a trend that, Weller and Cooper showed recently that the state of Virginia is actually hemorrhaging citizens, this whole state. And of the 133 school divisions in the state, there's only 5 who are projected to grow over the next 5 years, and we're one of them. That's interesting from the state demographers that I was.
So we'll get some teachers because they won't have.
They don't know, and it's a lot of theories out there. People leave in Northern Virginia primarily. Some are settling in other places in Virginia, but the vast majority are moving to other states. Tax reasons, I don't know. I mean, there's
Yes.
probably a lot of.
So there've been, just to add on to that, there've been a lot of studies where we're very technology heavy in Virginia, like in the rich, affluent areas, right? Northern Virginia, Richmond, our area to some degree. And Virginia is way behind the curve from a technology standpoint on, like South Carolina and North Carolina are years ahead of us in legislation to allow certain things to happen within those states. And so all of these industries are going to those states and pulling all of our people from Virginia. Like the stuff that we're doing from a wind farm standpoint and data, we're going to be
Data farms.
well, data farms, where we're point of entry for one of the newest communication cables that is going to turn around and go across the Atlantic. There's all the stuff that we're doing, especially in our region from Richmond down, but it's like 5 years too late. But I mean, hopefully it'll catch back up.
Well, let's go ahead and just kind of click through. We've talked about some of these things, but let's just click through the big ticket items. We won't bore you with the stuff we've already covered
The
tonight.
only thing I want to mention here again is that they both have, probably something that probably will happen since it's in both chambers. Where it's going to land, we're not sure.
And crossover happens Sunday, which is an important date in the General Assembly. That's when they share their bills. And both have landed on around 3%. So that will offset the cost to the city, and I think that's an important point. If we come in at my recommended budget with a 5%, and I'm going to actually amend it to 5.5%, if that's what you all want to do tonight, to match the pay raise at York, because I think our interest was not to fall further behind York. If we do that, and we've got a number of what that will cost, we are pretty confident, because the whole amount is being asked for from the city in this budget. We're paying for everything else, and we're asking for the pay increase minus the 1% bonus for this year to go to the city to fund. We would not have done that if we didn't believe that we are going to get something back. We don't know what that number will be, and of course we didn't even have these until Sunday.
So if we think it's 3 and they come with 1, is our teachers now getting 3% because we lost 2%?
No, we put in the budget to ask the city, we
They
want
get
5%.
So if they give more, does
So
it
the
add
city
on
can
top?
say, oh, we're going to give the 5, we agree with your 5, and we're going to let you get now we don't get the full 3%, we
Yeah, you
get
have to
half of
decide
that.
that.
We get half of that.
Half of the people get it.
So the city will have some money in that formula to either contribute to us with additional, or to say,
We won't take
we're
it.
going to do the 5, and
We won't take the 3.
yeah, and we'll,
Let's just take the 1.5,
That's the state.
the 1.5 would come from, they would just get the 1.5 back.
exactly. So
to use somewhere else.
that's why this budget is,
No.
If the city gives it, they just have to match the 1.5% no
Yes.
matter what.
Yeah, yeah.
They can match from what they were already giving us, so they
Yeah,
just
yeah.
need that 1.5. They would just have to give
because there is
1.5
no
less.
match coming to this. We've already,
Yeah.
Right. The
we've
5%
already accounted
takes-
for the 1% for this year.
Gets rid of the match, so it would be
0.5.
3
Yeah.
in addition, but you would have to do that with everybody.
That's right. So you get, in essence, you'd get 1.5 from the city, from whatever that number is would come from the state, and then the city could decide to offset that cost from the 5 they've already agreed to or not. Chances of us having an actual budget before the city takes this up is probably slim, but it's possible. You know, last year we didn't get a budget till September.
September.
Yeah. So,
The only thing is, the variable, Senate had it last year, they do have to support cap and repeal. If that happens or not, that's going to be really kind of, they got a lot of things to hash out about taxing digital services.
and didn't the Senate keep it for next year's, in the biennium, not this year?
Yeah, that's what it's. Okay, so we've been through the, well, I think we did this one.
We saw that.
It's the request for materials and supplies, the total is 564. So, do you have any particular questions around that? People here to address.
And
that.
again, I want to clarify how this works. This is to prevent, from what you all have heard, those who've been on the board for some time, and what I hear every time and I can't stand hearing it, I had to go to Walmart and buy my own supplies. If you hear that, you can say with complete confidence, you should have asked for it in the budget, because this budget represents what teachers ask for
Yeah,
in
they
the
just have
process.
parents to get it.
What's that?
Now they just
And
pay
remember,
parents to
you
get it.
all took the fees. There's no fees in your budget. This is a budget that reflects honoring what teachers have asked for. Now, I will say this, we didn't get ridiculous requests. Sometimes I expect that teachers ask for, oh, well, if this is the Sears Roebuck catalog, I'll get whatever I want. We really did not. Now, we went through and had some conversations with some folks. Can these be consolidated? Will this work? How about this? But nobody should be able to say, I've had to buy my own supplies. If they do, they didn't ask for it, because it's in there. It's representative in this budget. Now, we were able to do that without any additional cost by scrubbing the budget. We literally tightened everything else that we could to make sure that we could afford every dime that the teachers asked for. So I think this is an important point.
The increase in state funding, previously in the board meeting, mentioned it was 1.1 million. This is just a breakdown among the categories that's provided for. So there was a $2.6 million increase in SOP funding. Received decreases in compensation supplement. In the last biennium, they gave compensation supplements. Now they're funding it up in with SOQ. So that's where you're seeing some of those decreases there. We had increase in lottery funded programs of 90,000 and the other state grants, speaking to the SSO grant, how it's funding salaries for SSO.
How long are those SSO grants for? 5 years?
Renewable for 4 years.
4 years? So well, that's something else that we were going to have to account for.
Yeah.
I know, it's
very,
way
yes,
down,
very
yeah.
simple, yeah. Very simple. The net projected state funding, 1.1, we got net increase of federal grants, that's the net increase, the bulk of that is your digital grant. We received this roundout, increase in miscellaneous, it's at 32,000, and the 623 was referenced earlier in the board meeting that the increase for the cities.
So speaking of the WDA grant, are we applying for another one as well? 'Cause
We
I saw
are.
an email
Yep.
about that.
Yep.
We
And
are
we're going to
incorporating
continue to apply for grants. So anytime a grant is awarded, that's money that we are able to push into the budget in a lot of different ways. Grant cycles don't always happen cleanly with our cycle. So we won't know, for example, about that grant until
Usually it's September 30th,
September.
but it's going to be due March 27th, so we're going to work some more on that now.
But they are specific, see, those grants require certain things, and what those grants do for us is they get us things we can never afford. Like, we got literacy coaches out of the last grant, stuff that small divisions really can never have, and big divisions, we're competing against all these people that have layer and layer and layer of people doing things that we just can't justify in a budget this size.
How much could we apply for?
I think it's $500,000.
Because it's based on your military enrollment and 500,000.
The total cost of that 5% compensation is at $718,000.
You have
So, of course,
And
if
we've
it goes up,
added
half-
the
So we're
1%.
0.5%.
Yep.
so, yeah, 5% will be another number. We've reviewed the health and dental. Now, here's a breakdown of your projected expenditure impact. And these are just identifying your primary increases. You know, you'll have small things that you know there, but we have the compensation increase of $718,000. At 2% health insurance is at $44,000. We budgeted expense stipends, since that was approved by the board last fall. That's in there of $142,000. School security officers, though it's grant funded, it does increase your total bottom line, so there's your net offset from the revenue of $120,000. Bus run reserve based on history, we need to increase that by $72,000. That's just the amount we're spending for bus drivers to do extra runs. But here's your savings due to efficiencies. Another term for that is like just earlier, your permanent salaries on savings is at $383,000. Net equipment additions is at $342,000. That's the net after considering we were able to save some money in other areas. Contracts increased by $131,000. Purchase services, $124,000. Textbooks at $105,000. Utility costs that just increased. That's primarily due to having middle school come on board, where before it was under reno. Materials and supplies, $53,974. Division-wide software is based on history, $50,000. Professional development, $35,000. New Horizon, space they have their own projected salary increases. It's based on our participation program.
And we have an increase in enrollment there, which is a good trend.
Which is $34,000. Security system maintenance is identified needed additional maintenance, and we're going to have all this good chunk of everything we have, including protecting not only the staff, but also the kids. Online virtual learning increased to $22,000 based on participation. Building materials, about $19,000, and then it increased just in federal grants as a whole. And expenditure-wise, it comes to $280,000. So that gives us a big increase of $2 million, just identifying primary increases.
All things considered, the majority of these are reoccurring.
Correct.
That would be correct.
And some will increase, you know, we
Right.
don't want an actual initiative to increase our enrollment in four certificate and 4 credit courses. And, you know, this is a great thing for kids. So that number should grow if we're successful in that endeavor. And so these costs will continue. Now, the elephant in the room is we are, again, one of 5 school divisions projected to actually see more kids show up. We haven't seen them yet. So this was the hard thing for us. We trusted Weldon Cooper. We trusted Waller Todd too, and they failed us as well. Whole other story, the architects that designed the middle school. With their demographic study matched very closely. Did I say something I shouldn't
My
say?
bird
is dying or something.
Oh,
My chair. Yeah.
Their number matched almost identically to what the planning projections were for the city and what we would see this current school year in enrollment from Legacy and the other 2 developments, smaller developments. So we use that number as our ADM projection. and we haven't seen those kids yet. So what we don't know is, are they parenting like I would have parented and not moved my kid in the middle of the school year? And perhaps they're in the process of buying those properties and they're going to all show up in June and enroll, possibly. We just don't know. We did all the best research we could to predict that number, and it burned us. So we had to use carryover funds, request the city to supplement that for us to get through that cost the rest of the year.
Their estimate, though, was based on the complete development.
Well, no, it was based on the complete development over 5 years. So they anticipated 50, they projected 50 kids for us fiscal year 23-24 this year.
I guess what I'm getting at is, I believe that the apartments are almost a year behind where they should be. The development itself is over a year
Right.
behind where it should be.
That's where I was
And-
going, is that what you said is I believe to be exactly accurate. I think well, if we were to go back to Weldon Cooper today and say, hey, you guys missed it, what happened? They said they'll tell us they're coming.
Yeah.
So why I say that as it relates to this is that's $7,500 a kid. That's where school systems
Right, you give
are
them money.
able to afford stuff is by
Right.
growth.
Right.
School systems function by average daily membership. It takes some of the burden off of the city because the state funds per pupil allotment at around, the formula is around 75, am I right on that?
Now it's 65.
65-35. So that number will grow. So if Weldon Cooper is close to correct, we are anticipating 350 kids from the 3 projects and the normal growth that is projected in Poquoson over the next 5 years. So what that means for reoccurring budgets is we should see an increase in ADM over the next several years, which also equates to significant increase in state funding. Now, the other thing that is interesting in this, there's also a lot of talk in Richmond about changing the funding formula. There's actually 2 bills in there right now to change it. I don't think they're gonna pass, but from the JLARC study, I'm about 80% sure, maybe more, that over the next couple of 3 years, we're gonna see a new funding formula come out of Richmond. Every funding well, let me say it this way. It would be impossible, I think, for them to create a worse funding formula for Poquoson. If it's a more per pupil funding formula versus the SOQ formula that they currently have, we will benefit from that. Coupled with growth, which again, very few school divisions are going to have. Most school divisions are preparing for what they're calling the cliff. When the economy, possible recession, all that happens with slow or negative growth, they're going to see this thing happen. Those 2 phenomena happen at the same time. They're going to lose population and have a struggling economy. We're going to have the struggling economy like everybody else. And in Poquoson, that'll hit us a little more than some because we don't have industry to count on. And it will affect sales tax. So those things are all in the swirl about what's going to happen, but the advantage for us is an increased enrollment that we're confident is going to happen, just hadn't happened
So
yet.
how many kids can we absorb, do you think, in each school?
We can absorb them. And I
Well,
did
not
some,
those, so I'm thinking, so we opened up our schools to employees, didn't we not? A couple years ago, let employees
Oh, yeah.
decide?
yep,
Do we need to open our schools to other people to get this opportunity, to get this money to pay our teachers? If we want to look outside the box, do we need to say, you know what, some Newport News, y'all can pay for your kids to come to my school?
I would say yes. Now, here's the disclaimer to that, yes. Because remember, this board, you were on the board, I think, at the time, it came up, and at the time that the decision was, let's not move in that direction yet. I've been approached by several people. I think I would recommend, and I've already got this on my list to bring to you after budget as something for you to consider, is start with opening up to city employees. We did some numbers, 20, we think about 20-some, Terry helped us with that, 20-some employees may be ready to move their kids here. They would pay the local cost. You know, it's not free. If you're a taxpayer, all the money that goes into the
Right,
schools,
you
the
gotta
local
pay.
side of that, the taxpayers
You're paying
pay.
for somebody
So if we're
else's
gonna
paying.
welcome somebody who doesn't live here and pay taxes here, I would strongly recommend you don't do that without a cost. You can go to York County, for example. If you live in Poquoson, you can go to York, but you're gonna pay their local per pupil allotment. That number is, right now, $4,000 or $5,000.
But you get $750 back from $700.
When they enroll, we get $6,500 from the state. If we charge local tuition, that's another
What
$4,000 or
happens if we choose
$5,000.
military kids that can come to our schools if they want to pay the allotment? Would that generate income that could help pay for teachers? So we
Absolutely.
don't have to ask the city. These are the things that I want to look at,
Absolutely.
doing outside the box and say, hey, let's bring in more income to
Yes.
pay our teachers.
But
Yes,
the
yes, and yes.
danger of that is then you need more teachers.
But
So,
we have more students, so we
yeah,
have.
but there aren't more teachers.
But
We
finding
just
teachers is
said
another challenge.
There's
If we
a
increase the
1/3
pay,
less
what do you think we'll
kid,
get?
1/3 less teachers coming out of college.
And you wanna make sure you only do the maximum allowed per
So,
class.
right, you would have to cap it.
So
Okay.
there's
Yeah,
some
it
things
couldn't
we
be
need to talk
unlimited.
about.
An
No, better
unlimited
cap it out
deal,
as, you know, who
but
comes in, but
you
we
would
can
have to.
select a few and
Yep.
military
But
would be
maybe
a
the way,
good one to
but maybe the
offer.
way to start is with city employees.
City
Yeah, you can start
military.
anywhere and you can phase it in, it's just one board meeting away from you all deciding at any time to open that door. Now, the other side to that, and this is where the board stopped the last time, those of you who are on the board will remember, you can't select. So you can't say, you can come, but you can't. That you can't. So what you will see, I'm just telling you, from a place that charges tuition, people who are unhappy in their current school division, behavior problems, students with special needs, because they're not getting served like they think they should, will come to us, and both of those cases will suck up the money that they bring in 30 seconds.
What about military? Could you say military? Can we do
You
city
could do
employees
military.
So then we could just have just anybody who's not
You
happy
could-
come
For
in.
example, you have a military connected piece in there that's built in by the law anyway, certain things. If the parent is deployed, there's certain things we have to do already by law. So there is in your non-resident policy, there's a mechanism. We could expand that to say, if you meet these criteria, certain things you can put in there without discrimination, like you have to provide your own transportation. We're not running a bus out to the base, or we're not. You could say you have to live on base if you want to, which would then limit it to only certain folks. Or you could say you have to live within X number of miles. We can build it any way you want to. But I believe that is a conversation we ought to have, and all of that, along with enrollment increases, benefit us. Now, there is a place where it starts to get tight, and that's at the primary school. We crunched some numbers back in 2010-11. I think you all saw my response to the parent who asked the question. We were at about where the prediction is for us to be capped out from this project. So we should be 2350-ish when the projects are all built out. We were at that number at 2011. That was our enrollment in 2011. So we had the same schools, with the exception of the middle school, which we actually have more capacity. So each of those schools, managed properly with how we move classroom, can handle, I think, all of the growth that we're going to see over 5 years. So I don't think we have to get in the weeds on preparing for space expansion.
So no elementary school expansion?
It's not necessary, I don't think.
But we have trailers that we could use if it's
Yeah.
going to help
We do,
enrollment.
and so we're going to talk about, that's another down the road, we're going to send out an invitation here soon to you folks to take a tour of the trailers and kind of walk through and see what we see. And we're using several of those trailers very, very well. The problem is we need to get rid of a couple of them that we can't maintain. They're in too ill repair. They got mold and some things from them not having air conditioning run as consistently as it should and all that. And there was a cost in planting them there and building around them, but they were mostly all donated. Terry, you were here when that happened, or paid $1 here. They were $1 cost. But we are going to recommend to you at a future board meeting, after you've toured the trailers, if you agree with us, let's get rid of some of them and keep just some of them that we can strategically use. And if we if we have misshot this thing, we can move some kids out there.
But if we choose to open up, that would help.
Give you more space. Yeah. So those are all conversations that I think are wise to have down the road, and they're all beneficial to us. There's none of those that are kind of negative conversations other than, you know, you may change the dynamics.
Which we can't afford the dynamics we have now. Why we're in this predicament now is paying the teachers the lowest amount possible because we're trying to keep
Right, but
the dynamics we have, but we can't afford it.
here's the danger. You bring them in, and you still can't give them more money. You still can only give them 5% a year. And everybody else is giving them 5% a year too. So you really have netted nothing.
But we need one big jump. I mean, that's where the key is. At
Yeah,
some
but you
point,
need
we're
a
gonna
big
have to make
jump.
that
I
jump.
think you need a jump that's so big, it's gonna impact you like that.
If we double the jump we have now, we are over Gloucester and we're 3%.
Yeah, but
what are they
the
getting in
number
York
of
County?
We're gonna be
students-
over Gloucester with this jump.
Now, so we're 5.8, I think. 5.8%, I thought we were less than Gloucester.
Less than that, I think.
Because then they were gonna go up 3 or 2.
Gloucester is at, with bachelor's degree, it's at 49,050. We're at 47,154.
So, yeah,
What's that percentage?
we'll jump, yeah, we'll jump Gloucester
If
with
we-
this move.
But then
And
they're
that will
gonna-
be the first time ever.
But they're gonna give 2 or 3%.
They're gonna give 2%, last I talked to the superintendent, and maybe not even that. Now, if the state comes in with 3, they'll probably give the 3. But
Then we'll be behind.
if they don't, then we'll be about
But
the
then-
same.
I think we've got close to Gloucester before, and what they do is they give some more. They find it
Yeah,
and just say, we
it's
can't be
gonna
last. We
that's
can't be
my
last.
point.
And that's gonna keep happening, even if we make one big
Even-
jump,
and
that's
even
gonna
if you
happen,
bring in
because it's not
100
sustainable in
students.
Poquoson.
Right, even if you bring in 100 students, it's still not gonna be enough to get the amount of money that you need to make the difference in what you're asking for.
Like I said,
They would have to raise, I mean, I haven't, this is rough calculation, but to match York County, just throwing that out there, forget pay raises. Forget what they're gonna do, we're gonna do, that ship's gonna keep sailing. But if we were to just, it's gonna cost over $2 million to match them.
Yeah.
$2 million
per year.
for this, every year for the city is gonna be a significant tax increase. Because what they currently yield from the reassessment is about $1 million from the last reassessment for next year. So with that, we're asking for $600,000+ out of their million, and they've just done a salary study. I mean, coming in asking any more than that is dead on arrival, no matter what we do. And this is ambitious unless the state comes in and pays a portion of it. And why we felt confident to do this, we're pretty confident of that 3%, since it's in both houses. And the only way it would not pass is if the governor vetoes it, and the sitting governor is not going to veto a pay raise for school employees. I don't think. But,
Well, we kind of jumped ahead, but since
Sorry.
it was discussion, I thought we would go
Yeah,
ahead
put
and
it
put
up
it up there. This is one of, obviously, the things you asked us to address, and here's the numbers to it. Pointer here, but you see, it's at 5-step increments, so you'll have step 1 through 30, and then I just extrapolated based on the pay. It was $1,000 per pop, where they would land in comparison to your, the number of FTEs per step. It's your second column from the left. It tells you how many are at that number.
The
With
salary
versus
number
city.
is the total.
That's the salary and benefits. So to bring up just those 14, you're looking at 91,000. So I started to look at the 5-step increment, because that was one of the things that was discussed in one of the board meetings. So we're looking at 222,063 for the first 5 steps, 105, and then it goes just like that. You know, there's different ways.
and remember, this is reoccurring every
Yeah,
year.
Every year.
The other interesting point, though, I do want to make, why I think this, we put a lot into why we landed at the 5, and we think that's smart to go to the city with. One thing that I do think will help us in recruiting, I hate to say it this way, but we've also understood that York's going to be coming in with a 10% benefits cost, and they're going to relay that, the majority of that onto their employees. So you get 5% and your insurance goes up, let's say it's 8% or 7, 8%, they eat 2 or 3%. It's a net loss for most people.
So our 2% health insurance was absorbed from the school budget. It was not gone to the employees.
So what do we think York County's going to do?
10%.
So how many teachers do you think we're going to lose, experienced teachers to York County?
I think well, let me say this. I'm not sure
They're not
we'll
doing
lose.
10% raise.
Yeah, this is
They're
10%.
not
10%
for health
cost.
insurance.
Yeah.
Their
They're
cost.
gonna go at
No, I'm talking about
5%.
how much are they giving for their raise?
5.5% raise. And then but why I mentioned that 10% cost of their health insurance.
Eats
So
into the raise.
Yeah.
that eats into the raise. So I do think once that settles out with actual, now recruiting, sometimes recruits don't get into the weeds of that, what it's gonna cost them health insurance. You know, they figure it out later and then they move. But I do think we may be able to steal a teacher or two from over there. I hate to say it that way, but it is a very competitive market. When your cost of health insurance goes up and your pay raise didn't cover it, that is a significant impact, I think, on veteran employees.
Now, their health insurance is on calendar year, so the employees aren't going to see that till January, but it is going to be a cost to us.
Artie, so we're 5.5, you know, and the state turns around and says, okay, we do 3.5, right? And we see half of that, right? So 1.75.
6.1.
You know, so do you believe that will pass through?
I don't know. When we first started conversations with the city, we were talking about around 3.5, because that's what we were hearing from around the region, and we thought, okay, if we can keep up at least with what's happening around us, that's where we'll be. Since then, I informed the city manager that, you know, the board had a lot of interest in trying to not lose our ground with where we were with York County. We were actually trying to catch up, close that gap some, and we were trying to think of creative ways to do that. And so I didn't think our board would want to come in with anything that puts us further behind, and we've been told they're going to come in with a 5% pay raise. So we built the budget based on that. They know we built the budget based on that, but now we've understood that at the 11th hour, they put another 0.5% in that. So even doing this, that gap widens by 0.5%. Now, again, I think the city's got $1 million over last year to use for their staff, and you know, it's tight. That's tight. So to ask for anything above that is deaf ears. You know, it's just not. It doesn't help anybody in the conversation. I do think if we put all of our eggs in the why we've asked for this, I think we've got some rationale why we came in with that number, and how we've tried to use efficiencies to cover all of our other costs. So all we're asking for is the pay increase. And we do think the state's going to help us with half of 3%, with 1.5% roughly. In the biennium, they're going to come out with another 3% next year. So we're going to be back in the same conversation again next year. And of course, the city has to look at that because they have to anticipate revenue ongoing.
So, recruitment question, you know, which kind of plays into all of this. I know other school systems have multiple dedicated recruitment individuals. We don't, right?
We do not. You're looking at it.
Right. Have we considered, right, 100%, and then this is where I'm, you know, have we considered adding that position?
It's been talked about, but that's a good question. Here's the challenge with adding positions. When we go and have these conversations with our current staff, they've already asked for 20 positions already in this budget. They want 20 new positions. If you would go to the high school and say, what do you want if you could have a live person, another person in your building, they want a testing coordinator, because that falls on the counselors and the assistant principals. They beg for that. Then you go to the elementary school, they're gonna want another math, they want another math interventionist. And they've got a laundry list of what falls way ahead of that. They want a truancy officer. Everybody's begging, attendance. We can't keep up with chasing these kids down who won't come to school. There's a lot of staff requests, and those are things that are not in this budget. But yes, the short answer is, would that generate more candidates for us? Maybe, because here's what we found. School divisions who have that are still struggling.
Right.
And they're struggling because the job market has moved to an electronic job market. People are hired on Indeed, and we've gone on Indeed. We've kind of shifted over to the current market, and it actually works. It works for us, but we are tracking. You can't track how many teachers you're losing and how many teachers you're hiring unless you're comparing that against something. It's like trying to look at what your test scores look like if you can't compare it to states and the state's average and other school divisions. You have to have a benchmark. And so when you start looking at our formula of teachers lost and teachers hired, we still outperform everybody around us by far, proportionally.
Right.
We lose less and hire more, or have less unfilled positions. So we think we're doing what you have to do to be competitive in this market, but we're fishing out of a very shallow pond.
My biggest concern is the burden that it's placing on the school board office. That is my biggest concern, because we have a lot of stuff, or you all have a lot of stuff that y'all are having to page through on a day-to-day and a month-to-month basis that in my opinion is up here in a priority level, but y'all are having to elevate the retention and the hiring piece to an equal level, if not higher, in order for us to maintain where we need to maintain.
And Mike, I appreciate that very much, but what we find is we have that same situation in every category. It doesn't matter what you talk about. Every report that has to go to Richmond, and believe me, they love reports in Richmond, has to be done by one of us.
Right.
And in large school divisions, they have whole teams of people who do that. It's the same report. It's all the same reports. That we don't get less reports because we have less teachers and less staff and smaller student population. So that's just one example. Staffing, we're shorthanded, and we will probably always be shorthanded. But we're at a manageable point. We have a team now that's, we've had a lot of turnover over the years in our administrative group too. We're at a place where we're kind of rowing in the same direction, and we're feeling efficient. So I appreciate that very much, but I do think they'd run me out of town if I put another administrative position in ahead of any of these other things that the building where the magic happens needs.
And I can appreciate that on both sides.
So what?
So just to time check everybody, it's 9:40.
Yeah.
So
On the second item that was asked to be addressed was the supplement audit. And the supplement adjustments would cost approximately $87,000. These adjustments were not included in the FY25 superintendent's proposed budget. But upon approval, as referenced earlier, we have identified a few items, primarily the equipment addition side. If you wanted to adopt these supplements in order to be more competitive.
In other words, this is where the board has some wiggle room. We've tried to identify for you any place that we could kick a can down the road to do something that you might find more valuable than what we have identified as an item that's in the budget. Most of the things that are in there are kind of non-negotiable because we can't do without them. But these are some things that you all I heard some passion about, and I tend to agree. Love to have these things in the budget. I do feel like that stipend audit that we did is very telling, and I do think that is a recruitment and retention tool, because people doing these extra things are doing them, and we ought to be compensating them in a way that's competitive. I just believe that.
So the, is a copy of the stipend audit. The two that are highlighted in yellow, that will show, the first one is what the schools is charging. If there's any proposed change, that's in green. In the middle, that's 0. So, what's your pleasure, Mr. Tillett?
Yeah, there's a couple ways we can skin this cat. One is, we could take a few minutes and let you kind of scan through, since this is the first time you've seen this document. Another way is we could go line by line and discuss it, but in general, what you're looking at is us trying to do some comparisons to what our neighbors are doing. So in addition to salaries, we're competitive in these other places. The big items are things like, we have quite a few teachers who teach during the planning period, and we have we've recommended that we adjust that a bit.
We also have movement mentorship program that's been imposed for our new teachers. That seems to be something that was done in other communities as well, and our professional learning coordinator recommended that. There's also increasing substitute salaries for them to be more in line with our neighboring districts.
This particular item, that's $87,000 if you accept it as a whole, I think would make as much impact for a lot of our teachers as as an additional salary increase, because a lot of these teachers are doing this stuff, and we were a little out of whack in what we were compensating folks for it.
So,
Yes.
sorry.
I was going to ask, I was kind of looking through it, I was kind of looking at it from the 10,000 foot perspective. And I noticed that there's 21 hours is that negative.
Yes. So what we found was that was one of those places we were out of line with the folks around us. Some school divisions were doing nothing for additional hours or degrees. You either had a master's degree, and everybody pays on the master's, or you didn't. And then the ones that did had another benchmark in the middle, like 15 hours. We had two benchmarks. We had a 15 and a 21. We thought it doesn't give us we don't get any mileage out of that extra step, we don't think. We could wipe out that step and increase the 15 to be more competitive. And then that's kind of halfway in, somebody gets 15 hours and then they go on and get the master's. Then they get compensated again for the master's. Does that make sense?
So the net effect is everybody's salary is 0.
Okay.
Correct.
Or actually, for some people, it's actually an increase,
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
like $400.
Yes.
More people
get
get it.
benefit
Yeah.
from it. They don't give them more benefits.
That's right. And it's in line with what we see other school divisions doing. We don't know why there was this kind of arbitrary 15 and 21. There's nothing, we couldn't find any rationale for that.
I'm going to make just a general comment. And Chris, I'm sorry if I jumped on you.
No, you're fine.
But I just want to thank you all for not, stopping, band, chorus, all that stuff. We're well above everybody else, and, that's done a lot to turn around and retain, and it's going to do a lot to continue to retain.
I totally agree with that. We were all in unison that that's a place we need to shine and do shine, and we feel really good about where we are in that. We tried to, only in extraordinary places like that 21 hours, not try to cut any places, because generally we were not ahead in too many places. But, and we tried to not make radical jumps in places we couldn't justify.
For the technology, I saw it somewhere, does that include the people who are here? late.
Technology helpers.
Actually,
There's
it-
summer help.
there's summer folks. Actually, it does not. One of the reasons that those people, those are ITRTs, it's kind of part of their job description, and we really only ask them to do it once a month, and they take turns. So, and they have been very supportive of that, and especially being that we haven't asked them to do work sessions. This works, that we're filming it like this.
Yeah, if this works, if this works, okay.
That saves us,
If
but
this-
otherwise we might need to
If this
think
doesn't work,
about it.
I don't think, I mean, it's 9:45.
Yeah, I agree.
How do we feel about the department chair?
Yeah, here's, I'm just gonna give you my real belief about department chairs. The old department chair, I'm not a fan of. I think it was kind of, an unnecessary role, quite honestly. But the new role for department chairs is what we call professional learning community team leaders.
Yep.
And the work that they do is real work. They're in the weeds on data analysis. They're leading a team in being a collaborative educator, group of educators. And the work, the job description that we're asking them to do now deserves a stipend. And it should be across the board. That same work is happening in elementary school, it's happening in primary school. So what we're asking for is that to be kind of the team leader, PLC team leader across the board in all areas, to have a stipend for that.
And the last page deals with bus drivers and bus driver assistant bonus plan, which is based on New York. And this is, if for the first semester, we have 95% attendance for driving the bus. They're showing up every day, they're driving the bus. They get a bonus. So that was just something, it's like $250.
Do we feel like,
It was just something.
well, do we feel like that absenteeism with the bus drivers will be driven by that? Like reduction? You know, you know, I start getting really antsy, especially in a public realm with incentive-based stuff. And I mean, I just don't know. I'm just asking the question.
I think what's being addressed here, and this is yours as well, is just there is such a shortage. Whether it'll make a difference in behavior,
Hard to tell.
hard to tell.
I just don't want,
You used to have it at the hospital and you'd get an extra 8 hours of PTO.
Yeah.
Once you had perfect attendance for a certain amount of time.
If there's a place that it
We
would
never
work,
did
I think with our bus staff that it might.
I just don't want, I don't want bus drivers showing up
Like a year to-
Sick, right,
you know, or, you know, just not in the right mind to turn around and drive
to get that
Yeah.
stipend, yeah.
30 kids around,
That's a good point.
you know.
That's a good point. And we could try this for a while, because this is, again, this will have to be approved annually.
Sure.
That'll be part of your annual stipends. So if there's any part of this that we don't think we're getting any mileage out of, when we
I'm not
do
gonna
this
die
again
on the hill
next
on
year,
that one, but, you know.
we could wipe it out. But we have identified to kind of, I know it's late, to offset these things, if you're interested in that. AP test, again, it was brought up. I came from a school division that paid for AP tests. It gives us two things. It allows us real data, because right now we only get about half the kids take a test, so it's bogus data. If you require the test, then you get all the students' test data, and you can then analyze how do we compare, how do our kids perform on in AP US history compared to the national average and other schools around us. Right now, we have bogus data, and school divisions that don't require the test have the same kind of bogus
Sometimes
data.
it's, I don't know if it's the case, but like, there's teachers that want to teach those courses, and if there's a teacher that's kind of like, or trending downwards, somebody might be able to step in. and say, "I can do a better
Absolutely.
job," or something like that.
As a high school principal for a lot of years with a nationally ranked AP school, we were very competitive, and so we kept our ranking by making sure that we had only the best. All of my teachers were graders, for example. They had to go and grade the test. If you grade the test, you know how to teach the test. And so my expectation was we have the best scores in the state. And you do that only by tracking this kind of data. We don't have it. And then you can do just what Tim said. If you have a teacher that's not cutting it, you know, somebody else got to do it.
How much were the tests each student?
They're about $100.
It varies between.
Now, here's the other
We
thing.
require
This-
the students to pay it, but if they have some kind of situation they can't, then we can have a stipend to fund that afterwards.
That's another option, is you can do,
No,
right
this-
now, this pays for everybody.
This pays for everything.
Yeah, but I'm saying if we don't do that,
Yep.
we can have the.
We can.
To
And
take
now-
that class, for us to pay for these AP teachers, to give a stipend,
Yep.
you gotta say that, yes, I'm gonna pay for this test.
can't
And
do that.
you can tell, we do it for lunches and everything.
Here's a
If we can afford it,
caveat,
we
now,
cover it.
here's a caveat. In the General Assembly right now, if you know, it's not a large amount of money, so we could probably sit on that and see if, for example, we had some carryover funds, we wanted to say, let's do that with this for next year, and then we're gonna revisit it again. There's a lot of options here. There's a bill in the General Assembly to pay for AP tests for anybody on free reduced lunch. There's, we have a partnership with, I always forget this, NIMSY, that pays for some exams. So we could supplement this amount. This would be kind of a maximum amount. We could supplement that, offset that cost by some of these other ways. In other words, we wouldn't have to pay for all the tests. Especially if that bill passes in General Assembly, that'll take care of another 15, 20%. Then the NIMSY ones is another 10, 15%. That number could be offset. So we're not talking about a large amount of money, but it was more than we could absorb in the budget without a conversation. This budget is very tight. So the big ticket item is the salary, the stipend study. The smaller ticket item that we heard from you all is this. And we have identified a handful of things that we could offset both of those things to include these, if that's your pleasure.
So, if we could get real AP data, and let's assume that we have great teachers and kids are going to get great scores, that's something that we almost say, all right, Poquoson has a great AP program.
We say that already.
That's a
and-
marketing tool.
But at the same time, if you have real data, that does help.
That's like the U.S. News and World Health.
Yeah.
If you don't have it, you're not.
Having, again, run a high school that was ranked in the top 100 high schools in the country, and U.S. News and World Report year after year after year, first thing they look at is your AP data. And if you're never going to even be looked at on the list if you don't have AP data. And I do think our kids will be competitive. For example, use Becky Morrison. I put her AP U.S. history up against anybody, but she doesn't have all the numbers because only about a third of the kids take the test. So if they don't take, and we can't force them if we don't pay for it, so if they don't take the test, it's just, again, bogus data. We don't, so that is something that we could continue to work on even if we don't shove it in the budget by pulling something else out. We can continue to move forward with that. We've got a plan at the high school to bump up not only the performance but the participation. Our numbers should be another 10% higher, judging from our current population.
I'm fine with, obviously punting it and say, we'll try to, we'd like to find the money, but we don't need to put it in the line.
Okay.
It's a combination of fees and covering it, or whatever, $50 fee,
And we pay part of it, yeah. And some of that we can maybe flesh out. We are looking, we hope to get an enrollment increase, so that can help
I'd like to
us.
see 100% of our AP.
Yeah,
I'd love to see that too.
Even if it's a fee, I don't
Yeah.
want fees, but I'd like to see 100% participation.
I agree with that. So if, what I'm hearing is an attempt, you want to share a couple of those things, Brandon, maybe that we were considering wiping out or kicking down the road to try to add this stipend and.
The largest ticket item is $40,000 for the repair, makeup units, and that's at what school?
Elementary school.
The elementary school. The $25,000 gym paint, and that's at the high school. Bathroom stall replacement at $20,000, that's also at the high school. That's $20,000.
Where's this at?
These are all in our maintenance budget.
This is what I budgeted.
Oh, no, what page is it on
You
here?
don't have,
Oh.
this is just things we just identified.
Oh, okay.
To cut, is that what you're saying, to cut?
To cut. We've done about $110,000.
You gotta pay for the stipends.
To pick up the stipend.
Pay for stipends.
We thought that's where your interest would be, and so we went ahead and identified some things that we could live without.
No
I was looking for the page. and
No worries,
missed
no
the
worries,
question.
yeah. So we've done, the two requests here that have on the table is the stipends request of 87 and approximately $22,000.
So 100,000.
That's right, so yeah, 110, so we gotta find a way to pay for that. We have budgeted about $110,000 approximately things in our budget under equipment additions that we could possibly keep in. And now I'm gonna address those for you,
Okay.
just see if that's what you want.
Now I'm
That's
listening.
where it's at. So.
One question before we go there. Would we be able to pay for that with the playground money?
Pay for
Like
what? I'm
the
sorry.
toilets,
One of those
the
things I think we
painting,
could.
Okay,
Maybe
so
both of them.
repair makeup units, no. So, your
And that's
gym
40,000
paint,
you
What do you
said.
say? Makeup units?
40,000
Makeup
repair
air
of
units.
makeup air units.
The makeup air units at the.
Air,
Air.
Oh,
Yeah, I have issues with that. There's going to be a delay in the implementation of the actual project, the new project. So in the interim, but we think, based on what's happening, we might be able to get that key down the road. Any questions on the specifics on the makeup air units?
Well, everything I just heard, and I'll be frankly honest, I vehemently disagree with. On taking it out, and I'll be honest, I'm biased, I'm in the construction industry.
Right.
I mean,
Kicking it down the road.
doing something like that, kicking it down the road, just tears at me. I have a big circle around, building materials repair in the budget because, we have a brand new school, we have a school that's, 15 years old now? And, one of the reasons why, the middle school got in the position that it eventually did, in addition to age, but the reason why the primary school's gotten in the position that it's in, the reason why the high school's gotten in the position that it's in is because we've kicked the can
Yeah.
way too much, and makeup air units terrify me, because not having makeup air units working properly in a building can lead to sick building syndrome very, very quickly. And Brandon, I'm not trying to pick on you. There's ways around it and stuff like that, but that building is a LEED building. It's built a specific way, and it's built to run a specific way. And if we're not keeping it at that position, and we're going to turn around and kick a can down the road, that's a huge concern of mine.
I hear, and
So let her finish going through
I'm sorry.
what it is they're cutting.
Identified by staff, and then if you're not acceptable to it, perhaps we can't do the other things.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's just like
Is there a
a
dollar
lunch
figure on
break.
it?
Yeah, so
Here's your
40,000.
lunch break.
The makeup is 40,000.
40,000,
40,000.
gym paint is 25 grand. Your bathroom stall replacement?
now let's talk about gym paint just for example. That's a thing that, paint, we paint a lot of stuff every summer. It's in our budget. We do, I totally echo everything that Mike just said. But at least since I've been here, can't speak to what happened before. We really go through these buildings and earmark what we need to do. Some of these things, like the air handler shifting air around, is probably something that we may want to think seriously about, but it's a big ticket item. But things like paint, we paint every summer.
As long as the paint's not peeling,
It's not.
and all that jazz,
It's not.
fine.
But with the caveat, there is a little bit more of a dynamic to those makeup air units. There are 4 of them.
Understand?
Last year, all of them went down. We had only been running on one for a couple of years. So basically, I think we spent about $40,000 to have the control board rebuilt. Once we did that, we brought 2 back online. So we're right now not functioning as we were with nothing going. We actually we do have some function still
But
left.
has the whole building been rebalanced?
No.
Is this $40,000
There you
put it
go.
back up?
Yeah.
You're correct in what you're saying, but it's not, I guess, we're not going without anything at this point.
Yeah, and
So-
trust me, I'm not, anything that I just said, I don't want it to come off as oh my gosh, Dr. Ratliff is not doing his job, you know, I don't want any of that to
And
come
we
off
don't
like
take it
that,
that
you
way at
know.
all. We know this is a
It's
part of
just, you know,
So do we have any capital projects going on that we can shift the 155 and take that capital out to start covering this other stuff into a playground?
Here's
Go
the
back
thing
to
with the capital, this is a, and I didn't want to get into it too deep in the meeting, but this is an anomaly to have $155,000
Yeah.
of capital money. We never, because the first time really in my career, has the state, in the previous state I worked in, or in Virginia, given money toward capital projects. That all comes from the city, so, or your funding partner. That was a one-time thing, and we took from the capital improvement plan that we do every year. We add things to it, and the city addresses what they can and kicks some things down the road. It's just always the way it is. It's a 5-year moving target. We took 2 big ticket items from that and said, let's spend this money we got from the state. It was looking like it was going to be a wash, right about 1.5 million. The bids came in right at that, leaving that extra little bit left. And it's not enough to do anything sizable with. I mean, I didn't, by the way, I didn't know anything about this learning garden until this morning. So,
you're talking about the nurse riggings?
yes,
Okay.
I learned about that this morning. I knew that the PTA was raising some money to do something special for nurse riggings, but I didn't know that they had gone down this level of any of that. So again, I learned about it this morning only when the principal said somebody's going to come speak at a board meeting tonight about it. So that's not on our capital plan. It's not something we've been looking at. I just heard about it. So they've done a lot of work on their own without kind of running it through us. So we got some catching up to do on that whole project. That's just a sidebar. But we've been talking about this elementary playground since I've been here.
And Mr. Feig, when he came, said that it is not safe.
I will, again, I clearly am biased here. I have worked the recess monitor there as well. The problem without proper play equipment as well is the behavior issues pick up. When you are a recess monitor at the elementary school, which they are soliciting PTO volunteers for right now, you are handed a laminated sheet of paper, which is, they can't really play tag because the field in the front, they're going down in the ditches and they get too muddy, and we're sending them to the nurse with muddy clothes. So you can't let them do that. In the back, the basketball games were getting really aggressive. It was causing a lot of problems, so we really have to regulate that. They can't play moss anymore because so they can't play sharks and minnows because
It's moss.
yeah, that, all the yard games that my kids, well, not really yard games. So yeah, anyway, all the things.
Right.
But my point is, if we're harping on behavior problems, I mean, we don't have proper equipment to even offer. I mean, it's got to be age appropriate. Again, the kids are still having fun. I don't mean to say that. I mean, kids do have fun. They were working around it. But you can't use this piece of equipment because the ladder's broken. You know, you can't. So
Right. I
Congressman Fye is. I would agree with his assessment.
Well, I mean,
after.
that's what he's
Yeah.
a certified playground inspector.
Yeah.
And so, it's not
It's
just that
whack.
he's city council, right? And so, because we know that, and we know that it's a risk, and we know we have all of those other problems, to me, I think it makes sense to split the money, to give the rest of the money to give the rest of the money that the PTO needs. That is if, like, PEF or the Exchange Club or somebody, or the Kiwanis Club couldn't come up alongside that.
Here's the problem.
We don't have
What
that.
you all got tonight was bogus information, just so you know.
Oh.
What you heard tonight from a parent who decided they want to sign up and speak is not accurate.
Oh,
So y'all you just disregard anything you heard. That's just bogus information.
A year ago.
What you got is and I'm going to summarize this very quickly without getting into details. Brandon can give you the details. They did approach him. I went to him immediately, said, "You know anything about this?" As soon as I got the phone call this morning, he said, "Yeah, they came and talked to us about it a year ago and said they wanted to start raising some money toward this end. And they originally wanted to just do some small little thing out there. It was going to cost $5,000. They're going to raise $5,000." Brandon said, "Go have at it, have fun. We'll go to the city with you if you need permits." It took on a life of its own over time, and they've raised quite a bit of money, $16,000, $17,000. But you can't touch this project that they want to do with even half of that.
A year ago.
This is going to be $50,000 project minimum And so there's a lot of conversation we need to have, and it's not on our facility, I mean, our CPI, our
Well, and I
capital.
was thinking that, the Exchange Club or the Kiwanis Club or somebody else who does support, the schools or whatever could also help them,
Right.
with the
Or,
dollars.
or we can put in our capital budget, when we go back and do capital again, we can add it to the list somewhere, where it can be done, and then we can start raising money for it. The city can contribute, we can save a little bit of carryover money to contribute. There's a process of how to do this, but I don't like to, this stuff to be jumped on, you come in and speak at the podium and we all respond to that
It's
because
funny, we're talking about budget. and
it's
stuff.
usually fake information, yeah. So back to the project at hand, to CJ's question, you could carve out some of that money if it is a facility thing, because that money is
So
very
gym
specific.
paint, though, you said not gym paint.
I'm not sure we can use
Toilet
gym
paint.
paint.
The bathroom, stall replacement for $20,000, I've got to support this to the auditors, so, that would be kind of there. It's not really infrastructure, a large project, that's what they're looking for.
Large project.
You've got to really think about what the state was doing when they gave this money.
And
Yeah,
remember,
so
this
if
money
you do
came out of these
renovations-
dilapidated schools all
Yeah.
over everywhere, and the state said, we gotta do something about it.
Bathrooms? Have you been in those bathrooms?
They're not in very good shape.
They're not.
So,
They're not. They're terrible.
I mean, I know we want a bunch of things because it's needed, but we don't have enough paid teachers. What are we doing? Where are we
But you
looking?
can't-
What are
that
we
money
looking
can't-
2 years down the road if something goes down? We're in the same bind that we're trying to pay stipends now.
Yep.
In 2 years, if something happens and we spend on a playground and we need that for something else, we're gonna be like, oh, where are we pulling from next?
But remember now,
But-
stipends are an annual improvement. You all, every year, have to
Can't
approve
take
the
that away
stipend.
once.
Well, you can,
You
but
can.
I wouldn't recommend doing that, but you can. But at the same time,
But
these
people can
one-time
change their
things.
commitment level. People can change, that's the beauty of stipends, right? Is you can change your commitment level.
Right, when I come from New York, they have to approve the budget, and if they don't, they could always take athletics, they say, we're gonna get rid of athletics, that's all the equipment, and everybody passes the budget.
Strategy, yeah,
And,
that's
that's
a
all fine,
strategy.
but I mean, they can have, and there's a time that they took them away, and after the fall, everybody ponied up the money, but after they didn't have football season, but.
I think we're making a mistake if we don't take that 155 and apply it to a playground.
I think so.
I think if we try to
I agree. I mean,
slice and dice it or try to fit it into some other thing, and I'm going from a capital outlay standpoint when we deal with, DGS now and, from a construction side of stuff, I mean, they're gonna look for a holistic type of project. They wanna see that money's gone to a holistic, right? Renovations is a line item in there. I don't believe that they would think that the spirit of it is to turn around and, paint a gym with a portion of that money.
And then,
You know,
yes, and the other thing to think about when we're kind of looking at this holistically, we're never gonna see the kind of money again that we have the last couple of years in what we call carryover funding, when we go back to the city and say, we've got this much money that we want to carry over, because in Virginia, as you know, you gotta give it all back and then ask for it back. We're just never gonna see that again, but we will see smaller amounts, because you can't budget to zero. There's gonna be, you certainly don't want to be in the negative, but there's gonna be a little carryover. We might be able to look at some of these things, any of these things in carryover, when we get to that at the end of the year, but that's a process. We don't get that money till like November, December of the following year by request to get it back. But some of these things we can look at to put on our request for carryover funding, just to keep that in your mind. There's always a little bit at the end to look at.
I'd like some renovations to the wrestling room, because
I got that on the list, it's in there. We gave you $2,800. Now, here's the problem with the wrestling room. Let me just go tell you, I'm being very candid about it. Long before I got here, somebody sold their soul to the devil and decided to give this wrestling room to another organization to use under the auspices of maintaining it. That was the agreement, that I'm told, long before I got here. And that's great
Except it's not in our maintenance program.
if they maintain it.
They're not maintaining it, they want us to clean it, I mean.
If they do. And so when I first got here, I went, one of the first places I saw, I said, what is that over there? And I had somebody take me in, and I thought, oh my God, is that kid's coming here? That was my first reaction. You don't been in there.
Oh, yeah.
I bet it was a bad.
It's bad. Now, it's two pieces. The newer piece is not really terrible, but needs some
Except for the
routine maintenance.
insulation that's coming off.
It is, but that's cosmetic stuff. I mean, it really, none of that hurts anybody. It's not dangerous or, you know, but the old part of that building needs to be bulldozed, in my opinion.
The cinder block part.
So here's the question.
On school property, is that our property?
It's our property and we own it. This belongs to us. And what I would have done, I think, you know, hindsight's 20/20, I would have said, sign up, pay your fee every time you use it, like we do everything else we rent, our facilities, and you use that money to maintain it. That's how it works. That's the system. We don't get one dime from that for many years, because the agreement was you could use it for free anytime you want, 24/7, 365, but you maintain it. Well, the problem is nobody's maintained it. Now, they would say, and I'm not beating them up in any way, because I think, you know, that it's an organization that changes hands, different people run at different times, they do great things. But they're like us, they have limited budget, and they say, let's kick that can down the road, we won't do that, won't do this. I did have the building inspector go in. I was told that was some safety issues there, so as soon as I hear that, I immediately shut the place down and said, nobody's gonna walk in there until we get that inspected, because that's liability on us. Building inspector went in, checked it out, gave it a clean bill of health, do this, and do that, and everything's okay. It's safe, but it's still nasty. It needs to be cleaned thoroughly, it needs some work. So my point in all of that is, how much money do we take out of this limited budget and put in a place that should be bulldozed?
But if we pay for it, then they need to pay to use it,
That's,
unfortunately.
I think so.
So I'm not involved in wrestling at all, but I will tell you that it's a point of pride for the community.
It is.
And, you know, again, it's kind of like the AP thing, like if we require kids to take it and we get those scores, it's like a marketing thing,
Yeah.
right? You come here, we've got AP programs. You come here, look at the wrestling room that we have.
Yeah. No, I would love to have something to show off out there. We just don't. And so you're talking about, and I've got, if you look at the capital improvement plan you all built, I put $500,000 in there. It's in year 5 on your capital plan to bulldoze that place and build a new building. It's in your capital
Do
plan.
we charge Back River to use the football?
Yes,
Yes.
So everybody is paying except one sport.
correct.
And we're okay with making it look good,
Like even the
beautiful,
Y-
for
even
them
the
to use
YMCA
that one
place.
sport.
Everybody pays.
Except one. And you want to say let's build something nice.
But
for them.
again, I inherited that
And
agreement.
right.
That was an agreement made some years
I'm not in
ago.
favor of
Don't
that.
know why it was made. I just don't, you know, I don't mind taking on a battle, but that's not one I want to fight.
Well, the other
Not
thing is
Mr.
other
Manning.
people can use it, right? Cheerleading could use a wrestling room with all the mats, right? But
Can anybody walk
They
in
don't
there?
now.
So now they're unrolling that
they,
elementary
right,
school
they
where
don't
practice.
now,
They
Yeah.
theoretically they could.
but
Now,
they don't.
I came from a place that all those facilities had to be shared. Now,
Right.
nothing happens in there but wrestling.
Right. The
And-
only thing that happens in that room is wrestling.
And
So
it's
when we have other things that could use it from the school. So I'm not in favor of,
That's on down the road. Let's talk about science.
Yeah.
but I do think that's something we ought to talk about, but we already have it, guys, you all approved.
right, it's in the
It's
capital.
in the capital improvement plan, and that's when we address it, when we
Right.
can really
That's right.
address it. To take good money and throw after bad, to me,
Right, you're not gonna improve it enough to make it,
Well, I do
Go
think
longer than the
doors
5
need to be
years.
replaced.
now we replaced the door, we got in the budget, and our maintenance budget, $2,800 to go fix the rusted door, because that needs to happen. It's in bad shape.
the door in the
It was
frame.
padlocked with a lock we didn't have on our own property. We cut the padlock and readdressed that, but we're gonna put a new door on there in our operations budget. That will put the place up to
He's involved
So it's, we don't want to get in crosshairs with the wrestling group. They,
No,
you know,
no.
They do great things in this community, and they have a great program, and it's, like you said, it's part of the pride and heritage of Poquoson. So I hope we don't, you know, jump into that fray. But right now, I just don't think we can take out of this tight budget and throw
No.
more money at that building that really, you know, it's like putting new seats in an old car.
Does the school use it at all?
No, I'm not talking about this budget, I'm talking
So
about.
why would we use it?
Yeah, it's on the capital, it's five, you got $500,000 in the capital budget,
Russell,
all for that room. And you know, at the work session the other night, the city is addressing our capital request in a very aggressive way. I was extremely impressed in that work session the other night. They showed their line when they expect to have some debt payment and start to you'll see some relief from that, and they're going to address some of these projects, not just for the schools, but the schools get a big chunk of that. They're taking care, if it passes on the 28th, correct me if I'm wrong, Tara, 28th is when they're going to, 26th, vote on the capital plan, and it's got the HVAC system, $2.8 million, our request to replace that system at the high school, and 2 more buses in next fiscal year. Now, toward the end of the fiscal year, because I think they're trying to pay down some debt.
How are we looking on buses? Like, do we
We're
have
getting in,
extra?
we're getting a lot better. You know, when I first got here, we really had a whole fleet. So we put 4 or 5.
We're 4 short of meeting the state recommended replacement cycle.
Yeah, the city has
So we've only
been
got 4.
very diligent in giving us capital money to get the old fleet updated, and we bought buses every year since I've been here. Some years 2 buses.
Yeah.
So we're moving along the capital projects that have been kind of kicked down for years. And part of that was COVID money. You know, the city got some COVID money, they shared with us, we got COVID money. And buses became one of those things you could do because we had to have more space for kids during COVID. It was a quirky little thing that you could use some of that money for that. But it worked for us. So we're in pretty good shape with buses. And again, 2 more are in the capital budget if approved on the 26th. So I'm feeling really good about this budget. It's not an easy one, but it's a very tight one. And if we can find a way to maybe put off some painting and a couple of other things that are not mechanical.
The HVAC system, letting those go downhill.
Yeah, I think you're
destroys
right.
the building, and then we're shooting ourselves in the foot.
I agree with that.
prolonging the pain.
So let us go back and see about these things and try to whittle down if there's some of those non-mechanical projects that we could look at. And we'll come back to you to present that at the budget. Is that what you, at the
So-
March meeting? So what's our next step? Madam Chair?
CJ, you mentioned you wanted more time for a calendar meeting.
Yeah,
And
so
we're
like
supposed
to
to
match
vote-
up your
We're
county.
supposed to vote on the calendar.
I mean, if you do an hour and a half, as long as we have what it would look like to do Friday, full days, add 3 days if we have to, instead of half days in the middle of the week, and give them a full day of professional development, what the teachers want, and a full day would probably be better, and then they might not even need a full 6. They might say they need less since a half day is
Full
not,
day.
a full half day for them.
So if I hear you correctly, if we go back and build another draft calendar for you to look at, we'll bring you this one back again and another one that has 3 full work days on Fridays, strategically
Or I can just
placed.
match kind of that one that I gave you.
If you look up, I think it had 4 full days and 3
Half day.
half days,
Yeah.
or maybe 5 full days and 3 half days.
Yeah.
Which
We'll
kind
try
of
to match it
makes
very close to
12 or
that
whatever.
and
so-
bring you a draft to look at, so that should be easy for you to look at there. And then we'll,
So, we're supposed to do at the next meeting, we actually have a public hearing on the superintendent's proposed budget and the commission. So I have to advertise the numbers that we're having. So, there's just the challenge of time with that, we have to advertise about 10 days before. So, we can identify who we're going to run, and maybe an email or something.
What if we do that and identify some places, if I hear you correctly, the goal is to try to get to that stipend number, and Tim said it would be okay to kind of kick back the AP thing and kind of skin that cat another
So
direction.
there's other ways of
Yeah,
attacking
As
this.
long as we can make the
That
test required.
stipend number, which was 144,000, would be 1% more of a raise to every teacher creating new stipends. Is that right? It's about 125,000, it was 711,
87.
It's 87,000.
87,000 for 1%. So that's.
No, 80, no, the 87,000 is the stipend.
87,000.
Which is not part of.
For,
125 is 1%. It said, was it 700?
no, it's 87, the total's 87,000.
He's talking about what's the
He's
cost
trying to
of
get
your
the cost of-
1% more of a
Oh,
raise.
1% pay raise.
Yeah, it's
I got you.
$200,000.
That was 125, that's 7, we're doing 800.
Well, actually, if you only give it to the teachers, but what about everybody else?
I'm just asking the numbers. The numbers.
There's
before-
100
What is it to give the whole staff 1%?
To the whole staff of 1%, it's running about 160.
Yep.
But it's got to be reoccurring, remember, that's a reoccurring number. And that's hard to do without a commitment from a funding source.
And what is 1%?
6, 7.5.
No, to my paycheck.
Into the net paycheck.
What's the 1% to my paycheck? Would I rather have the stipend?
For
Would you rather?
some teachers, instead of everybody getting the 1%.
Here's the.
And we need it for the stipend. I'm not against the stipend. I'm just,
No, no, no,
I'm
no.
talking about numbers. All
Right,
together,
right,
hard
right, but
decisions we have to
Right,
decide.
if the decision is between,
2% of a raise to me or 3% of my raise, if my boss telling me is a big difference to me in my head. I don't care what the number is there. You're telling me I'm worth 2% or 3%.
but we're telling.
The
but
other
we're
side of that,
for
though, to
5%.
keep in mind, is what retention mileage we get from these supplements. If
Right,
we wiped out the supplements, I can tell you that would affect what teachers do for us.
right,
And I don't know if we could function without it. I mean, if you say we're not, no more club
right, that's how
sponsors,
people
no
have
more.
figured, that's how people have figured out
Just
how to
throwing
make it
that out
work
there.
for
And that's
them.
why I kind of said some of the things with doing a percentage of raises, because of the more clubs you do, the higher percentage you're gonna get. So if we're gonna say we're
Well,
gonna get
that's true,
5,
with the
3%
stipends.
might, some people might only get 2 and the other ones might get 4 because these people do more programs. And if we can make it where we do performance-based bonuses, that means how many extra programs you do might rank you higher than your
Well,
peers.
that's
in
what
the bare
that's
minimum.
what this is.
That's what the
I mean,
stipends
in
are,
short,
in
the
essence.
stipends is performance bonuses. They're
That's right.
basically, if you do extra work,
You're getting
you
paid.
get paid for that. And every school division in the state of Virginia that I ever heard of, and most in the country, do it. So to wipe it out, you'd be kind of in this kind of no man's land. I do think if we're ever going to talk about, it's way too late to try to do anything for next year, but if we're ever going to talk about trying to look at a merit process, it should be done through bonuses. Because then it's something you can control and you can afford, and you're not married to it. A pay raise, you can never go back on a pay raise. But you can take a bonus away if you have to. And especially if it's a bonus for certain things that you're asking them to do, like sponsor a club, be a department chair, be teach through a planning period.
So it may be something that you want to do, like, all right, I've got a window between, like, my kids and the effort I'm putting in. I can do it for 3 years, but then I got to step back.
Right. And that, we see that, we do see
That's how
that.
they do that with stipends now.
But to me, that's a stipend, that's not a bonus.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So we do it with performance. So if you're gonna get 2%, because that's all the company can give, 1% is guaranteed to you. The other 1% is, that some money is divided, so you might get 1.5 and you might get half. And so then all of a sudden you start having, I need to compare to you. You do a lot, I'm gonna start doing a lot. And she's gonna be like, well, I'm gonna do more because that bonus is.
The problem,
Yeah,
the
but
problem
then it
is,
doesn't
the problem
scale
is
like
it
that.
normalizes itself after a
That's
certain number
right.
of years, and then you've got to raise that bonus structure.
Right.
And it
It's
does,
already-
and the other thing it does, if you're making more money, you're actually getting paid more for doing that same task than the person who happens to be a first-year teacher.
Correct.
A 30-year teacher,
Right. You
if you're
gotta
doing it
act
by
with
a
that.
percentage of salary. So that's why schools use bonuses, and stipends to
I like
offset this
percentages,
cost.
that works.
Everybody likes percentages when they're on the
And the
other
raise
end of
don't
the
work.
paycheck.
Talking about the teachers, you don't
See,
get
I'm
the cost of
an old
the raise.
school person.
So Yeah, you definitely are
We
gonna
have
make
it,
it.
but it's gonna stop at some point. You're not getting raises every year, like.
Well, that money's gonna run out.
Well,
And that's where it hurts. Like,
Yeah.
if it was raises every year like it's been doing for the last 4 years, it would work perfect.
And that's why I have said, and I say this to our staff, when I present, every year when I go present the budget, I say, first thing, we want all the money we can get for you. We're in an unusual environment right now, and I'm an old guy. This is my 33rd year in this business, and I've never seen these kind of pay raises. Normally you get a cost of living here and there, 2%, 1.5%. You might see a 3%. The highest pay raise in my career before moving to Poquoson was a 4.5% pay raise.
You haven't seen 25% increase in.
Nobody's seen it ever. Nobody's seen it ever. And y'all even seen it in healthcare, I would imagine. You're having
One
to-
meal to go feed my family is $80.
So
you should have.
I know why we're doing it, but it's still the fact that we've never seen it. So my point is, what I say to them is, while this money is flowing, we need to take full advantage of it.
Yeah,
Because the day's gonna come
where it's not gonna be.
when we're not gonna see anything but a cost of living or
Right,
nothing.
you gotta push to the max
You
now.
got to push to the max now.
To
And
get
then
where
is when you start
to
talking
land.
about doing these other more creative things. Right now, we got to take every dollar that's on the table that we can get from
And give it.
Richmond and give it to our employees.
Because otherwise,
We can't keep up.
the vicious cycle is, we're just gonna be that much further behind.
Yes.
And then you gotta try to make up that gap, and that's insurmountable.
Insurmountable.
So now you're, instead of being single digits behind, you're double digits behind.
But I think we need to look at what our teachers can take on new student-wise and look at ways to bring those students in. And if it might be for military, it might be for city employees. We don't want to say we need more teachers because we brought too many in, but we need to find that magic number that's going to say these teachers can take this. We have empty seats here that could be 6,500 here, could be there, and what that number is, and if it's worth it. If it's 100 kids, it might not be worth it for.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
That's my.
And we
and
will
it-
get
for-
those numbers
But
for you.
If you're not-
$650,000 for 100.
Right, if you're not gonna get,
Yeah.
it has to make financial sense,
That's right.
you
We
know?
need to see what they can take and.
Right, but I don't think that will be ready for a budget.
No, but what
That could
we
be for
can
next
do,
year's
and that's
budget,
not
yeah.
really a budget impact. It will help our budget if we
Right.
get those kids.
Right.
But we already had this on our list of things to be bringing to you all.
Right.
Because it was brought up before and everybody said, let's kind of kick this conversation down a bit. I have been, 2 or 3 city employees have reached out to me personally to say, we're going to look at this again, and I promise that you will. And it can be a good thing if we decide very carefully who we're going to allow, and I would certainly recommend that we start with city employees. And then
Military
maybe
kids
look
would
at
be great
military.
too.
Yep.
The more military kids we get, the better we look into.
I think
I
we have
agree.
to study, I think we would need to study that. We wanna understand what we're doing. I'm not saying it's a bad idea, but I'm saying we really need to make sure we're understanding the implications and that we have the buy-in from the parents and the students and the teachers. You know,
I would
like.
hate to see us implement something, and I agree wholeheartedly. And then all of a sudden, we get this huge influx, and now all of our teachers are maxed.
Right, and our resources that would go to our kids, that to
Well,
our
we can
kids.
control that admission though.
You can only
Ish.
control it with your policy. So in other
Ish.
words, what you can't do is pick and choose. You can't say, we're going to let folks come in and then all of a sudden we close the door.
Well, we can say
Because
capacity
then that's
is
going to be a
90%.
discrimination lawsuit.
You know, keep
The
cap-
very kid that we say you can't come is going to be the one that sues us for
Well, we
discrimination.
could say 90%, up to 90% capacity.
Yeah, you
It'd
can-
be
you
like
can
a
have a
that number
capacity
stops,
rule,
and we got
yes.
that 10% extra.
You
That's
can have
our stopping
capacity.
number. Sorry, we are full
You can
capacity.
have
We try to apply.
certain
Yeah.
groups like
I
military,
hear no problem.
but what you can't do is individualize.
Right, you
Yeah,
can't
no,
say
I
you
didn't
can
mean
come and
control
you can't.
admission by, picking and choosing, I meant cap it off.
Absolutely.
You can cut
You
the
can.
number.
Yeah.
You can have a count. You can have a
Well, I think we should
capacity
understand
cap.
the financial implications. And,
Of the
you know,
different scenarios.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. Okay, so, next steps, do you guys wanna have a meeting in 2 weeks?
Or-
To prepare for the next board meeting in March? Or are we gonna be able to cover it in a work session prior to the regular school board session in March?
When's the next session, 19?
March,
March 19th.
March 19th.
And if you can start at 5:30, and then
19.
we could jump right in and get started.
And when's the joint?
April.
April 22nd.
Yeah, but we've got to submit a budget to the city by the end of March.
Right. It has to be submitted.
So that date, that March date is
So
the
the
date
question
you have to
is-
vote on the budget. But I think the only place we're not sure about is how to squeeze into this
So March
budget those
5th
stipends.
is the midpoint, would be the midpoint Tuesday, March 5th, if we need to have an extra meeting.
I would feel a lot more comfortable having an extra meeting, because I mean, we've all had a lot of conversations, we've been very dynamic about it, and it's all been very good conversations. I just would hate to see us, and be constrained in an hour and a half or 2 hours in a work session, and, some of us go one direction and
Well,
some
it would
other
give
people don't.
Tracy the final, so she could put out the public hearing notice. That would kind of be the point for me, would be
Just
That's the law.
that she could
just
put
a
out.
timing by law, you have to do.
Right, so it
Yeah.
would be enough notification to put out public hearing
Yeah.
if we did it Tuesday, whatever I said that was, Tuesday the 5th.
March 5th?
Tuesday, March 5th, 5:30, 6 o'clock.
5:30.
CJ, I'm asking you because I know 5:30 sometimes is a challenge for you.
Yeah, I might make two. Like I said, I get here as soon as I can get here, and that's what it's up to. Because my wife's working in Williamsburg all day, so she won't be home to grab the kids.
Would 6 be better? I mean, we could, that one, we could
Yeah, if
probably
6 is
do in
better,
an
if
hour.
I mean, 6 might be tough for me too. I mean, I don't know. She works sometimes till 6. I mean, I'm just, it's that Tuesday where, like I said, I can come in a little bit afterwards if I need to and get caught up. Don't hold it up for me because my schedule is.
Why don't we do it, why don't we do it 6, to just give him.
So
Give
6
him
o'clock,
extra
so we'll do
half
6 o'clock on
Yeah.
March the 5th for the budget wrap-up and any calendar conversation that needs to occur.
Yep,
Well,
and we'll be prepared in
Then
that
we can
meeting with a
be-
calendar.
then we can have the work
Another
session
calendar.
prior to the,
Wait, March 5th? Or no?
no, that's May 5th.
May.
If it's, we cannot, we cannot,
Send us
unless
some-
we're going to El Rancho.
Every
I was gonna say
day
we can make it.
now.
Unless
Unless
we're
you have a
going to
meeting
El
that
Rancho.
night,
So we're no longer.
You get a lot done.
All right, so
No,
So I probably forgot the last 2 hours of stuff you talked about.
March 5th, 6 o'clock, budget, calendar, and playground conversation.
Okay,
Budget, calendar, playground. We'll decide at that meeting if we need to have another work session prior to our next meeting, which is the 19th of March. Is that fair? Yeah? Are you okay with that, Jonathan? CJ?
Yeah.
And you're good with the meeting, right, on the 5th? Jonathan? Cinco de how do you say March in Espanol? I don't know. I don't know. I speak French.
It's March.
Marzo?
all right,
Marzo, Cinco
Thank
de
you guys
Marzo.
for staying late.
Marso,
Thank you all.
thank you.